Welcome to Creators Cafe. I'm your host, Jessica Payne. I'm a performer, performance coach, and multi-hyphenate creator. I'm going to be bringing you conversations with some of my favorite creators where we talk about the sublime and the specifics of the creative journey. So grab a drink, get cozy. Let's go. My guest, Candace Jade Lewis, is a producer, writer, director, and designer. She's currently an associate producer at Old Curiosity Shop, working on the upcoming Presumed Innocent. Prior to that, she worked at Bad Robot, where you may have seen her work on Castle Rock and the Cloverfield Paradox. Along with being a producer working with top-tier creators, Candace is a powerful creator in her own arenas. She's a photographer, visual artist, writer, and she's directed multiple music videos and short films, including the upcoming Two Frogs in Boiling Water. Candace creates graphic art for industry professionals, including storyboards, vanity cards, and pitch decks to help get stories sold. Her online promotional series featuring a Bad Robot puppet protagonist created fascinating mini-genre films that I couldn't get enough of. I love how she infuses her magical realism and a playful, nostalgic aesthetic across all of her work. Please enjoy my fantastic conversation with Candace Jade Lewis. Welcome to Creators Cafe, Candace Jade Lewis. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, what are you drinking today?
I am drinking a oat milk latte.
Nice. From Dialogue, and I've got an iced latte. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So I'd like to start off by asking people how they think about themselves as a creative. So I know you do so many things, which I love, and you're so just one of the most creative people I know in like just walking around in the world in real life. And so when you think of like the ways that you define yourself and what areas you like to play in, what are some of the ways you identify as an artist?
Oh, like specific titles? Or just,
yeah,
okay.
Like start off with titles and then go from there.
Yeah. I mean, producer, director, writer, designer, which kind of encompasses a lot of things. Storyboard artist. I've done vanity cards for people, pitch decks for people. So I get into like graphic design. I've also done production design, a lot of design. But overall, I would say like a world builder. I love whatever my skills can kind of add to a project that grows that world.
I love that. Your worlds that you build have a very specific, fun kind of perspective that I see as a through line between a lot of them.
Yeah.
What are the things that you tend to come back to as themes or visuals? Because some popped out for me, but I'd like to hear from you what you like to go back to the most.
I would say a big part of the things that I gravitate towards is probably an element of rekindling your relationship with your inner child. It's definitely, or even like correcting childhood memories where you can go back and change something that was maybe a negative experience for you and you can turn it into a positive one or a playful one. I constantly feel like I need to feed the inner child.
Do you think, I mean, we've talked about how like you as a kid, you were really creative and you were creating worlds and making people come and play with you. Do you think that there's like, are you trying to like, I don't know, in a deep way, like go back and cheer her on or bring her into your projects now?
I would say so. And this is probably going to sound like I'm having a conversation with my therapist, which I started. Highly recommend everyone get into therapy. Man, it helps.
Nice.
But no, I feel for me, I was a very internal child. Like I liked to make up games and invite people in that way. But the confidence was lacking. And it's something that I still suffer from, of just trying to get the confidence to share and invite people in. And I feel like film, television, these are all wonderful mediums where you can share your perspective with people. Because I find existence can be so isolating and there's no true way to get anyone to see anything from your perspective except through film and television. It's a beautiful way to invite people in and take different characters, different walks of life. And you can really, at times, manipulate the audience even to feel what that character is feeling. And it makes you feel a little less alone.
That's really beautiful. I want to come back to a lot of that. First, I want to come back to the confidence side because I think, I'm an actor, but I'm really shy. And I've performed for hundreds of thousands of people, but I'm very nervous. And I have such a deep toolbox of how to get myself through that, but it's still something that I feel sometimes. And knowing you for many years, I've never thought of you as someone who would be unconfident. Like, I trust you because that's your lived experience, but it doesn't come across that way at all.
That's good.
You'd very much come across as like the cool kid I wanted to be friends with and thought I shouldn't be because you were too cool. So what has helped you through the years, along with that kind of storytelling and finding people to connect with, to find that confidence to share your stuff? Because your stuff is bold and different, and it's not mainstream in the best ways. And so I think it's harder to share stuff that is more personal and outside of what's celebrated by mainstream culture.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a double barrier. So how have you kind of gotten yourself into a headspace where you're confident showing your stuff?
I mean, it all starts with just creating it at the first. And by that, I mean, not trying to get bogged down by the perception of other people, like what they're going to think about it. Mm-hmm. Just focus on what you want to get out of it and kind of what story you're trying to tell. And even, I don't know, it's even like an adventure of correcting things. Like, there's something fun about creating things and it improves a memory, or it makes you feel, it's like therapy in itself. Mm-hmm. And so I tend to try to find some way to relate to the things I'm working on with an experience of my own, even if it feels very disjointed. And when it comes to sharing with people, I always start with those I trust, people that I'm like, they're not going to make me feel like shit. Mm-hmm. They're going to at least take my feelings into consideration. And then once I feel it kind of gets a little bit better and better and better, and then I start kind of going to the next level of people. And so it's definitely an act of self-preservation where I don't just dive right in and then just share rough drafts with everyone. Yeah. It's always a level of comfort.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you just kind of have to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, I just finished a short film, and I'm going to be screening it for some friends and family, and that's a huge step for me. Normally, I would just put something online or enter competitions quietly, and then people would later find out that I did this thing. But I'm trying to correct these bad habits, and it's anxiety-inducing, but I'm going to do it. And we're going to have a nice, fun screening, which obviously you're invited.
I'm coming, obviously. Yeah, I'm so excited. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I chose to not watch it. Thank you for giving me the option. But just because I'm so excited to watch it in the theater and experience it with everybody. Can you tell us about what it is and kind of what's going on with that project?
Yeah, it's a short film. It's called Two Frogs in Boiling Water. Mm-hmm. It started off where, through the pandemic and the years after, feeling a little bit separation between creativity and making stuff with friends. And it has been several years since college and film school. And it felt like it's been a long time since I made something just with my friends. I've made things for the purposes of other people. Like, I've done like a few music videos or working on bigger shows where I'm a part of the support team. But it was a long time since I really truly made something just with me and my friends. And it started off with that kind of adventure where I was writing the script. We had a date that we had to hit to shoot it. So there's also the fear of not reaching that date, of having something like incomplete. And money was on the line. So I was like, I have to get it done. And it was just a really cool experiment of making something with friends, where at this point in our lives, we've all kind of grew in our little departments. Several of these friends are getting like higher and higher up in their own fields. And it was nice to see them lend their skills to something that we all got to feel like we had a part of. Mm-hmm. And that's the essence of the short as well, where it's, I would call it, I would call it a nihilistic comedy following two millennial dudes in the apocalypse.
Okay.
It has like a Bill and Ted vibe.
Fun.
Very silly.
Yeah.
And yeah, they kind of have this like quest of a dream during a time where it feels like dreams are pointless.
That rings some bells. Yeah. Awesome. I'm so excited to see it. And the title alone feels like it's pretty deep into what we can expect.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm excited. Some of your other work has been a little apocalyptic as well. Your short film that was set post-apocalypse that had kind of, not buddy, but like that relationship between an adult woman and a younger girl.
Yeah.
And it had some of those like echoes of how do we deal with kind of a world that's falling apart, but we still want to live in that place of hopefulness and connection, and the embodiment of the shadows that we have to deal with and everything. And in that, you also brought in like the projections and photography and things that I've seen woven through a lot of your work. What out of all of that resonates with you the most kind of moving forward? Because I've seen the paper dolls and the going back to childhood and the projections and the photos and the like trying to like find your path in a world that's falling apart has come through your work pretty strongly, which is cool. It's nice to look at a body of work and see these themes. What kind of moving forward are you excited to explore out of those or let go?
I think I would probably not be able to ever let go of a lot of those things.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why I keep getting gravitated towards them. And they just speak a lot to me. And I think they can really be embedded into a huge array of material. Like it doesn't all have to be magical realism. Which I am very fond of magical realism.
I think that's my favorite, so I really love your work because of that too.
But I think it's a commentary on the human condition. I feel even at our worst, people still yearn to have a connection, and sometimes their behavior is reactionary if they feel like maybe they were denied a connection, and it kind of stems from anger. But I think at our core, most people want to be connected and they want to feel a part of something. And a lot of times that can take prey on people's darkest desires. If you feel like you are rejected and you don't quite fit in at a larger scale, you will fall into probably more insidious things that kind of scratch that itch for you and make you feel like you belong there. And there's just something to that, just this yearning to belong, and the toxic nature of nostalgia at times. It's very captivating, and it can lead you astray. It can make you stay in the past. That's something I struggle with, where I feel like I'm so fixated on the past or the future, it's hard to be present. And that's something that I try to work on. That's my piece that I need to develop better.
That's really interesting because I definitely live future focused. So I definitely feel the feeling of needing to be present at times. But in your work, it feels so nostalgic in a beautiful way that it also pops up some memories for me of like, oh, of course, I played with paper dolls and things like that. That's not something I think about. So it is nice to kind of go down that road with you at times too. And we've talked about how can get dangerous to not have that growth mindset and, seeing people that you love get really stuck and into not changing. And so it's, I think the art side of things also helps us to look at ourselves and see where we are growing and where we're a little stuck.
Yeah. And a lot of times you can even look at television shows and see that it is kind of the study of change with a lot of characters. The whole point of it is to see a character go through an arc.
Yeah. Totally. What are some influences on your personal style, your aesthetic, and the kind of stories that you like to tell?
If it's like filmmakers, I love Miranda July. She is an indie darling, if you're not familiar with her. She's also someone that I feel like does a lot of magical realism. Very quirky, has a very unique voice. I love her. There's Michel Gondry, of course. I feel like anyone that likes magical realism, you love Michel Gondry, you like Spike Jonze, you like Jean-Pierre Jeunet, which is a French filmmaker. He did Amélie, which is probably the epitome of magical realism.
And such a sweet, beautiful movie that actually, I think, got the mainstream attention that a lot of those projects and directors haven't.
Yeah. Wong Kar-wai, like In the Mood for Love is one of my favorite all-time movies. And then, like, artist-wise, I love, like, Wayne White. He's someone I find inspiring. He did a documentary years ago called Beauty is Embarrassing. And it's a lovely study of an artist's relationship with their art and being playful with it. He was the production designer on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Oh, wow.
And so he doesn't really take his art too seriously. And I feel like that is a good way of approaching your stuff, where, like, you can get so bogged down in, like, the artist statement or, like, what are you trying to say? And sometimes art can be fun. Like, you can do art for art's sake. That's cool.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have this multi-layered meaning. It can just be fun. And in a way, that is kind of what Two Frogs ended up being, where I didn't want to get bogged down in trying to make this perfect thing. I wanted to have fun with my filmmaker friends, you know?
I love that.
Yeah.
I was so excited to see it. With your projects, you had the paper cuts. I had to look at my notes. Where she goes into this really magical realism place where she literally dives into her bed and comes into a room full of paper. And I just thought that imagery was so cool and beautiful. I just really love that, and that stuck out. What led you down that path? Do you remember?
I've always been someone kind of stuck in my own world, and I felt like it often kept me separate from those around me. I felt like I didn't do a good job at having friendships, although I always did have friends. I don't know. I feel like we are our worst critics and hardest on ourselves. And it was a little bit of that. It's the feeling of, if I am struggling today, I can always find the warmth of my imagination. And it's a comfort place, and it's supposed to be a safe spot. But in that one, you know, ultimately it kind of turned nightmarish and confronted her fears and confronted what she was dealing with. And so it was a little bit of that marriage.
Yeah. One of the projects I'm working on, my character has a mind palace, and it's very, I would say, like, lavish and built out and everything. And I just loved a different execution of a similar idea, because I was like, oh, this is like it's not like in her brain, it's like in her heart, or like this like private little corner somewhere. And it was it was just very like homey and nesty. And it was just such a beautiful representation of that concept that I think a lot of us feel. And I think that's one of the other things that ties your art together for me, is you have a really cool way of finding 2 and 3D non-realistic representational ways to come at an idea that's very universal, which is cool, which I saw in that, but also in the which we'll talk after I break more about Bad Robot, but you did the Twitter, now X, contests for that, and you created all of these mini films for that, which are incredible. And it was so fun. And you had this like little tiny bad robot that would go through different like films, and you had different genres, and you had like, I felt for him or her or it. I felt for Bad Robot, and I was totally invested in the journey. And I just love how you took the same kind of core skills and emotional like, I don't know, paint, and applied it in so many different ways. What was that like?
Really cool experience. It was when I just started there. When I first started at Bad Robot, I was the receptionist. And it's a really cool place where if you're in the building, they let you participate in a lot of things, and whatever skills they discover of yours, they're going to want to put them to use. And they really help you flourish whatever creative side. Like, it's a really cool place to explore those opportunities. And I don't know if they still do, but they used to do this weekly competition where people can retweet, and you get a chance to win something that they would make in-house, because they had like a whole art room where you silk screen t-shirts or letterpress or laser cut. Like, it was endless, all the things that they made in-house. And so every week people would be able to have a chance to enter, and they would announce the winner the following week. And they gave me the opportunity to create these like little 30 to 60 second short films every week where we would announce the winner and show the new product that they made for the next week giveaway. And I had free range. Like, I got to write them. I did all of the paper, because I would make them like little puppet videos. And then I would be able to shoot it and then edit it. And I did like everything from beginning to end. And I had to do it in a week. And so I was handcrafting puppets by myself. I was making little PD buildings. I got help from Gabriela Quires. I'm sorry, Gabriela, I'm probably butchering your last name, but she was also there, and she would edit them with me, and she would be the camera woman. And we got to make these like beautiful little videos every week. And it was a lot of fun. It was really cool to have that amount of freedom, and such a fun little throwaway thing that didn't really have a huger purpose except to bring a smile to people's faces. And I got to showcase all these cool little things I could make.
Yeah, it was such a crossover between your directing and your world building and the physical art that you create. I definitely encourage people to check it out on your website.
It was a really cool experience, and I'm glad that, it was like something that I didn't really quite do on my own until then. And I was like, oh, I could have been doing this the whole time, making something in my garage, making little like dolls or whatever. It was like things I've done separately, but to put it all together into one little project was really cool.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, we let like size and scale and gatekeepers and nobody's picking me and get in the way. And I think that's part of why I'm so attracted to your body of work, is because in those 30 to 60 second videos, that's where I saw the threads that connected everything else for me the first time.
There's a bit of a handmade quality to everything that I do. Which you'll see, there's definitely a handmade quality to Two Frogs in the best of ways. There's just like a goofy thing that you'll see, and you're like, "That's weird, but funny."
But it's so charming, and that comes out. I feel like it fits with your personality, but it comes out in the visual work without you being there to represent it. So that's really cool. And I think there's also something about just having the deadline and the courage and the like, we need another one, we need another one, we need another one. And a lot of times it's just that repetition and the quantity that makes you good and confident at something too. Are you ready to be confident and comfortable in front of a camera? Well, my name is Jessica Payne, and I would love to help you. I'm an actor, acting coach, and the host of the Creators Cafe video podcast. I have helped thousands of people to learn the skills of a Hollywood actor to be more comfortable in their body, voice, and mindset whenever you press record. So if you're an entrepreneur, a business person who needs to be in front of the camera, or you want to get into digital content creation, I would love to offer you one-on-one on-camera performance coaching so that you feel like when you press record, you can be your best self. Check out the link below for more details, and I can't wait to work with you. Let's have fun together. So we teased a little bit about your time at Bad Robot, but can you just talk about your experience in the production world?
Yes, happy to. Let's see. Well, before Bad Robot, I feel I started out doing the gig job, which is infamously difficult, you know. And I was in art department a lot, and it was non-union. I was working on these non-union productions where they pay you dirt cheap. They can get away with like criminally low wages because they can, and they know you're desperate, and you just like really want to work on this thing. Where there's a tiny art department, your role is like prop master, but really it's because you're a team of 3 and you're all just kind of pitching in, and terrible hours, miserable experience. But character building. Like, I definitely had people yell at me, throw things at me during this time, and thankfully I was rescued by Bad Robot. There was a friend of mine was working there at the time, and he knew that the receptionist job was opening up. I got to submit my resume, and thankfully they liked me, and I got in, and it was a bewildering experience because I go from, you know, like the non-union, low-budget stuff, and I'm going to this building where, like, magic feels real, and everything's carefully curated, and everyone's nice. Like, from then on, I had the luxury of only working with kind, generous people.
Ugh.
And it feels like a lie because it's the television and film industry. It feels like those people don't exist, but they do there, and all of their relationships are with great people. And so, yeah, it started really at Bad Robot, and I worked as the receptionist for 2 years. They do everything in-house. So if there's reshoots happening, even on a huge movie, you get to work on it. They find a role for you, and you're getting real-life on-set experience with big names, and it's thrilling and exciting. And from there, I got to work for the head of production, and that meant when I was on his desk, I got to see things go from development to production, and we got to kind of like lift them up and get ready to go. So it was every movie, every television show during that time that they were making. So I got a lot of hands-on, really cool experiences. Yeah, and it felt like a whirlwind because there's parties you get invited to, and there's things happening in the building that are exciting, and it feels like a fever dream at times. And thankfully from there, I got introduced to Dustin Thomason, who I work for today. He was co-creating Castle Rock, and I got to be both his and Sam Shaw's assistant, so I jumped on to Castle Rock, which was really kind of a nice turning point for me. I had never worked on television before then, and I got to be in the writer's room, stay through production. I got to be in post where I was in editorial, and I got to see things from beginning to end, work with department heads, people that have been doing this for decades and are incredibly good at their job. And it was, it's like, it's addictive, you know, and you're working nonstop, but I loved every second of it. And so that was like season 1 of Castle Rock. Season 2, Dustin Thomason kind of shepherded the whole project on his own. And it was just dream-worthy. I don't know. Really kind people. And it makes, because you're stuck with these people for like 12 hours a day. Yeah. And so thankfully it's with people that you really like to be around. Yeah. And he has been generous and awesome with letting me be involved at every stage. And that's kind of what got me into producing. He promoted me to his associate producer. So I got to have real say and dialogue about the projects that we were developing. You get to work with amazing writers and give them notes on things. And you're like, why am I giving you notes? But this is lovely. And it's just like a cool kind of, I feel like you're playing in the sandbox with a bunch of kids at times. They might not like being called kids, but I feel like we're playing games. And yeah, like very lucky to work for kind, generous people that they do want to see you kind of level up and improve your own work, you know? And that's kind of the stage I'm at now, where it's like, okay, I have to kind of work hard on showing what I'm capable of on my own and developing and kind of making sure I don't ignore that entirely, because it's easy to, when you're in production, you are so kind of zoned in on that you let things fall to the wayside. Like your own projects kind of fall away, they feel less important. And so that's the thing I'm trying to like reframe now is I feel like I'm at this point where like, okay, this is my chance to prove myself, to show what else I'm capable of. One thing I didn't really talk about is the ability of wearing multiple hats and how useful it can be, because I ended up like with Castle Rock, I was able to like direct a lot of like their insert unit. Yeah. So then when you're in editorial, oftentimes creators will rewrite in editorial. Yeah. You think that it ends at the script. It does not. Yeah. And so there'll be times where we'll create entirely new scenes that were not on the page, but using the footage that we have. And then we go and do reshoots or little inserts. And so there's times where, because I can make props, because I can do wardrobe, because I can do all these things,
Yeah.
I got to do the insert unit. And so all these like little blips that you'll eventually see in the show, like a hand comes in. Like that was filmed months after.
Yeah.
And it was just because we needed to inform the story a little bit differently.
That's so cool. So what are you excited to be working on right now?
Well, I mean, just finished Two Frogs, as you know.
Yeah.
So, like, that's kind of in the can and excited to share that. Been working on a pilot with my friend Emily McGregor, our friend Emily McGregor.
And podcast guest number 5. And she's sitting on the couch. Hey, Emily. So if you hear giggles, that's her.
And that's been a cool experience. I feel like everything I've done up until then has just been on my own, which is excruciating.
Yeah.
Because it's like working in a vacuum.
Yeah.
And you don't know if it's working at all. But it's nice when you're working with someone because then you can like write gibberish and like, is half of this decent? And it's nice to get that immediate reaction of, you're overthinking it, it's fine, we'll get it there. Because I tend to be my worst critic.
Yeah.
And I'll stress over something, I'll like write it and I'm like, this is a terrible draft. Just like, Candace, you're wrong. There's potential.
Yeah.
Be easier on
There's
yourself.
good stuff in there.
Yeah.
And when I've talked to both of you, it sounds like you have a really easy partnership with the writing process, which is kind of dreamy.
A nice surprise, because
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah.
You never know what kind of, even if it's someone that you've been friends with years, you have no idea like what it's going to be like working on a creative project where it involves multiple directors in a way. Like, 'cause if you're both writing it and you might have very different opinions. There can be a lot of fights. I've seen that in other scenarios for other team writers. And yeah, it's like one of those weird things where we discovered our strengths are the opposites, or like they're
complementary.
They're complementary, thank you. Yeah. And so we were able to kind of bring together like what we're both really good at. It's like, well, this was strangely easy. Are we doing something wrong?
That's so nice, though. What do you see as some of your strengths that you bring to the table?
I'm very visual. And so I love to, without getting too heavy into description, because that could also be a death to a script where you don't want to overly describe, but clear, concise visuals. And I love writing where you insinuate camera, because there's nothing more I hate than reading something where it's close on, swish pan. Like, I don't want to see camera movements written in. I want you to tell me what you're seeing. Eyes squinted. That insinuates an extreme close-up.
Nice.
Things like that, where you want to insinuate what you're seeing rather than telling. And so that I feel like is my strong suit, and I'm really good with plot. And Emily, of course, is brilliant at dialogue. If there's something where I'm just like, I have no idea what to make them say, but it should be kind of like somewhere like this, and then she'll put something beautiful. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's it.
That was
great.
it.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are there any resources as a writer that you look to, or influences, or, if somebody wants to go down that road, books or scripts or anything you'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, of course, the school textbooks people will always recommend, like How to Save the Cat. But for me, the best, and this is also advice I was given by writers, and that is read. If you, every day read one script. Every day. Script Slug is a wonderful website for that. They have a slew of scripts available. I have downloaded so many scripts from that website. I have like a huge folder because I never know if it's going to like disappear. And so I just have a huge catalog of scripts I've saved. The majority I haven't even finished reading myself.
Right.
But honestly, read. If there's a movie or show that you love and you are particularly drawn to those characters, see how they write them. And because you can learn about the rules, the equations that are kind of inherent in writing, and when should things happen by certain page counts, sure. But the best way to learn is to read. And then, of course, just write, which is the harder thing. That's the harder part. Even if it's like 30 minutes a day, and this is also something where I struggle with, where you really got to just carve it out no matter what, no matter how busy or like not in the mood you are. You cannot wait for inspiration, because then you'll just wait forever. And I'm not saying I'm good at this, but it's a good tip that I try to follow, is just you have to treat it like a job. And that's why the reading comes into play, and the writing. And honestly, people copy each other. Like, if you found something in a script, and like, I loved how they did that montage sequence, or I liked how they wrote this scene, people copy each other's format all the time. And so there's really nothing wrong with, like, looking at how, let's say you wanted to have, like, a drug scene, and you look at Requiem for a Dream to see how they wrote that. That's fine.
Well, and some of our biggest blockbusters have homages to other films.
Absolutely.
Done, like, in a very upfront way. It's, I think, as long as you're acknowledging that you're either changing it enough or acknowledging that this is a love story to this.
And sometimes it's really just tool set, right? Where it's like, you're not too sure how you might necessarily write out a scene, or even just like format. Sometimes I can get really stuck on format where I just want to make sure on the page it is broken up in a way that makes sense. And the best way to alleviate that is, well, who has done something similar to that? Yeah. And then you can look at their script and it's like, oh, that's brilliant.
That's the way to do that.
And that's the way to do it.
Yeah. What are some other tools that you use? Like, what do you write in? What else? Like the script site. I don't know about that one. What is Script Slug?
Slug.
I didn't know about that one.
I think like every year they get all the Oscar scripts up, so you can get them through there.
Okay.
It's a huge catalog of stuff.
That's great.
And then if you can't find it there, usually I just Google whatever script PDF and see what pops up.
Yeah.
But otherwise, tools that I use are more like habit things.
Oh, great.
Well, yes, I use Final Draft, of course, but that's what the majority. It's kind of the industry standard, and so you can't get around that.
Yeah.
I know there's other like Movie Magic, and there's other things, but I mean, get Final Draft. And as far as habits, I have to trick myself a lot. I feel like I let my emotions take over. Like if I'm feeling down, if you want to get into like a specific scene that you're writing, I put on soundtracks that kind of embody the vibe. I like to listen to different composers. I love Nick Cave and Warren Ellis. That's my jam. I'll just put anytime this is going to be brooding, put them on and let it go. And another trick I do is I have hour candles. They're basically candles that will go from top to bottom and burn out in 1 hour. And so if I'm feeling particularly like I don't want to do this today, I light the candle and say I can do an hour. And that I put my distractions away, I put my phone away, and I light the candle. And every time I feel myself pulling away and wanting to look at my phone or be distracted, I look up, damn it, it's still burning. And it really, for me, it's kind of necessary.
Yeah.
But there's other people that are so much better at just like, no, it's 8 a.m., I start writing, and then I finish at 2 p.m., and now I'm good. But not me. I have to have all these little tools to incentivize myself.
Yeah.
Even to the point of like, I can have that treat as soon as that candle finishes burning.
Yeah. I have a little hourglass over there.
Oh, nice.
I still have not timed it. It is a little while. And so I flip it and I'm like, I can write for a little while.
Yeah.
And then once it's done, a lot of the times I'm then in the flow state and I can keep flipping it and it's fine. But that first little while is the worst.
Yeah. And so it definitely helps. And then it's that little reminder of don't grab your phone. Don't go to another tab.
Yeah.
Just sit there and do this task. You can get through a scene.
Yeah. What helps you go from 0 to 1? How do you create something out of nothing?
By that you mean just like an idea?
Whatever, because you're creative in so many ways. I know sometimes you're serving a brief in some way, right? So if you're making something for someone, then you've been tasked with something. But if you're coming up with something for yourself, you have like, I want to do this, but I don't know where it's going to go or I don't even know what it is yet.
That's something I had to kind of adjust, because I am definitely that person where if it's for someone, I drop everything and I do it. And there's also an exciting nature to work with someone or to work for someone, and you like it's because it's automatically you're going to get that immediate response. But if it's on my own, I have to tell myself like I'm excited about this, and it doesn't really become about the end result. You're trying to not get fixated on, is this good enough? Is this a smart idea? Is this dumb? And we all tell each other those things all the time. And I feel like that's where my mind lives. So I have to trick my mind. It's like, I'm doing this because it's fun, or I'm doing this because I'm excited about it. And if I can just harness that, that's what gets me to do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you usually start from like a visual concept, like I see it like a
Always
movie
visual.
and I want to write it down, or do you hear it or see the words? You see the.
I can play movies in my head.
Me too. Yeah. And so when that works, it's amazing.
Yeah, and it usually starts off where you just like you keep playing that scene over and over again, and you're like, I just have to write it.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to learn that that's apparently not common.
No, a lot of people.
I thought everyone played movies in their heads. Do you
Emily,
play
do you play movies in your heads?
Yeah, I can play movies in my head.
Yeah, because I learned recently, like a lot of people will just like, if they have to think of something, like what did you eat yesterday, or what do you want to do next Thursday, they'll like think of words and not even see a picture. And I think it's so like fascinating how different our brains work. And I like that people who are in movies think in movies is kind of beautiful to me, of like, oh, that's how our brain works. And so we put that out into the world because that's our inside made outside.
One time, I don't believe this, someone said that most people dream in black and white, and I was like, no, unless they're colorblind.
That's interesting.
I feel like everyone dreams in color.
I don't know. A lot of people don't remember their dreams. I remember like 7 a night. So I'm the extreme, the opposite direction. I'm like, I would like to just sleep.
I one time had a dream of an entire movie from beginning to end, completely made up, with like John Travolta was in it.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm not going to go into details about this really terrible movie that I made in a dream, but it had the credit sequence and everything.
Oh, wow.
And I still remember it. It's a terrible movie, but I dreamed it, and you know what? It had a score and everything.
You know what I want you to do? I want you to have that like a clip of the end of that with the credits.
Oh, I know.
And,
well,
like
because the couple finally comes together and it goes into like a wide shot. But again, it's a terrible movie involves they all work at a grocery store where there's a gremlin. I don't know.
I want you to have that like on in the background of another thing that you make.
Oh,
like
now we're talking.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. People be like, what the hell is that movie?
No, it's my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love how different our brains work. That's so cool. So one of the other things that you do is storyboarding. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I got started into storyboarding because it's the easiest way, once you have something written, to get closer to production. And it's such a great tool set to have when you're working with a cinematographer and maybe your words don't quite compute, and you're just like, this is what I mean. Oh, got it. But it also helps having that skill set with the people you work with. Someone might hear that you do storyboards, and then you find yourself doing it in a different way. But I love storyboards. You can be as simple or as detailed as you want. I tend to be too detailed, which takes me longer. But yeah, no, I think it's a really great skill set to communicate as a filmmaker. Yeah.
And then you took that into the next kind of logical step into creating like pitch decks for people.
Yeah.
And people might not really know what those are. So could you explain pitch decks a little bit?
It's a digital guide to a show or movie that you're trying to sell. It'll have different sections on like the overview of the project, the themes, mood, tone, characters, and oftentimes they'll try to combine that with some visuals. Just something that kind of carries through what the story is about. If it's a like I did one where it's more of like a period piece, and so made each page look a little bit textured. I used old fonts, took like real found photos to integrate in it. I did another one where it was supposed to be like the New Yorker, so I illustrated a whole cover for them, and every page felt like it was a page in a New Yorker.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and it's also cool because it's usually people that I've worked with in the past, usually writers or producers, and so it gets me, it kind of helps you be more a part of their process, and it cultivates that relationship. And you get to work on cool stuff with people.
I've had friends say they've been kind of behind the scenes where something didn't even have a script yet. It just had a great pitch deck. And those are getting sold now. Is that something that you've come across?
It depends. There's some writers where they still will need to write the pilot or feature and join it with a pitch deck. The desire, of course, is to not write it without getting paid.
Yeah.
But not everyone has that luxury.
Yeah. Or that clout or history.
Yeah. So it kind of varies. There's definitely we've all heard the story of the writer who scribbled on a napkin and sold $1 million script, So we have like varied versions of that.
Yeah.
But I've seen both. But generally, if you're kind of developing, let's say, with a production company, and then you're going to go out and pitch it to networks, or with a studio, generally it'll just be a pitch. And then if they're interested, then you can have them green light it, and then you can write the script. That's the ideal scenario.
That's pretty
when
great.
You're writing while being paid.
Yeah. Do you have any recommendations for people who are interested to getting into production or production houses or developing their own projects and trying to get to a level where they can be pitching things to maybe indie production houses or something like that?
I mean, as far as production goes, if you're not familiar with what department you want to be in, entry-level work as a PA is the best way in, and try to get on a union show. They are a little hard to come by these days. Production has slowed a little bit. But that's the best way to get kind of an inside experience into the whole process.
If you don't know somebody who can help get you in, what are the websites or places you would look for a job like that?
Unfortunately, a lot of it is through your connections and the people you know.
So it's just working on smaller films and projects and trying to meet people.
Yeah, because a lot of times the people that they bring on are people that they've worked with before, or through a friend of a friend. It can be tricky that way, where it is really who you know.
Okay. So it's no more people.
Yeah, I know. That's such a bummer thing to say. But generally, even like the PAs, it's like word of mouth. We ask like just the people that we've worked with before. Do you have anyone? Do you know anyone that would be good for this role? And we tend to hire from these pools of resources, people that are kind of already in it.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those, from the outside it feels really unfair, and from the inside it makes complete sense of if you're going to be working on high budget things that have a fast turnaround and long hours, you want to have people whose character you can trust as well.
Yeah, and there's definitely some forums you can go to. We like to use different Facebook groups like Awesome Assistants, which is on Facebook. And that's a place where we kind of pool a bunch of resumes from. Sometimes we go to the job postings at colleges, where we either use Chapman or even, Dusty's from like Harvard. And so we're using those forums to pull resumes from. So definitely look at the job postings of your own colleges.
That's smart.
Oftentimes you'll see people that are alumni will try to hire from there. And then as far as writing and trying to get your stuff seen, it's just you have to write and enter competitions. It's really hard to get larger companies to see your stuff if you're not if you don't have representation. And that's also a hard thing to get, where it feels like it's a catch-22, where you want to get your stuff read, but it won't get read unless you're already written and accomplished somewhere. And so that can be tricky and kind of overwhelming. But it's also a safety net where people, there's a reason why that exists. They don't want to accept so much material to where someone then accuses them of plagiarizing or accuses them of stealing an idea that they had. And so there is the safety net, that these are like the safeguards that are in place to protect them from liability.
Yeah. And so for somebody who's just trying to get in it, it's just make a lot of things at whatever level you can make and work at the level you're at, and then just keep building it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great competitions out there to enter your stuff. And there's also like writing groups that you can try to join. It's really, it boils down to being tenacious, which is hard because you have to be really proactive. And that's like even my first job at Bad Robot, the reason why I got it is because of my friend that was working there at the time.
But then you took a receptionist job and made it to associate producer, which is that's not the path. That's not what most people do. And that speaks to someone saw your potential in your character.
Yeah, and I would say being willing to take on those jobs, like you unless you're extremely, there's the rare story of the person that right out of film school they sell a script and it's like a rocket taking off. The most of us usually have to kind of do an entry level job and work your way up, and so being willing to take on those jobs and wear multiple hats and down to help in whatever way, that's the thing that's going to help you get to the next level. I know it's a phrase people hate, but paying one's dues is a real thing, and it's something that I think there's a good service to that. It gives you good experience, and it cultivates relationships. There's, of course, limits. You don't want to be abused. You don't want to run into situations where you're working on non-union shows for low to no pay. But paying your due within the system, I think, is definitely worthwhile.
And it helps you to build that confidence because you've been there, right? You've been in those rooms and you've seen what it takes. And so it's a whole different story now because you've been there and you've put those hours in. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the company that you're with now and how that kind of functions within the industry as a whole? Because I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's with Dustin Thomason. It's his company, and we develop a lot with Bad Robot.
And what's the company name?
Old Curiosity Shop.
That's it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But it's his baby, and I just get to be a part of it, which I'm grateful for and excited about. We get to develop all sorts of like fun and ideas and work with amazing writers. And it's also a tricky time in the industry right now. It's a little slow, and people are scared. The networks are very cautious, as are the studios, of what projects that they want to buy. And so Dusty's someone who's so brilliant at having so many things on his plate. And the hope is one of them will get picked up.
So with your time at Bad Robot and now with your new production company, where do you see your role kind of evolving from? You started literally at the reception desk and then you got to create these short videos and you got to show your work, and it was kind of, you've talked about the like all hands on deck kind of nature of pitching in lots of different creative roles, and how you might just have like, if something is needed and you could do it, you were the person and you stepped in. And I love that because that's kind of how you want it to work, and it doesn't always work like that. So it's really encouraging to hear like you were encouraged to bring your skills to the table and really contribute. So that's pretty cool. And now you're like flourishing as an associate producer, and you're getting to kind of use all of the things that you've done at a much higher level. So at Bad Robot, you got to go from receptionist desk to directing insert shots to being the front of the social media campaigns, creating on behalf of this giant international recognized and respected company. And now you're kind of evolving in your role at Old Curiosity Shop. So now you've stepped into this associate producer role. What does that look like and feel like for you?
You know, it's both exciting and scary. I feel like I definitely have room to grow and things to learn from. And hopefully one of these projects we're developing will get into production so I can really wear that hat better.
So you have a project that is coming out this summer with your company, right?
Correct. Presumed Innocent. It's going to be streaming on Apple Plus. It's if you're not familiar, it's a Scott Turow book that was written a little bit ago. And they made a movie out of it in the 90s starring Harrison Ford, and now it's going to be a limited series starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Ruth Negga. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited for people to see it, but it's my first associate producer credit officially. And it was a very interesting project in the sense that a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I mean, we had a lot of great names on, it was a Bad Robot production. David E. Kelly was the creator and EP, and then we were kind of the additional EPs on this. It was something that my boss Dusty had originally developed on his own, and then we attached David to it. So we've been on it for a long time before it became reality. And I feel like I got my experience in trying to figure out what my role as associate producer is and how to integrate it, because it's not a common role. Not every show has an associate producer, at least not in the production side. And so, it was definitely something that I kind of figured out what exactly that role is and how I want it to be in the larger scale of the project. And everyone is super generous and kind during it.
What are some of the things that you do as an associate producer? What are some of the things that you did carve out?
It really varies. And a lot of times it is to support the overall story and the producers. And you're trying to communicate between department heads, and it's just to make it a smoother process for everybody.
So you're just like overseeing the process from beginning to end.
Yeah, you get to be a part of it all.
What is your creator's challenge?
Ooh, okay. My creator's challenge is, especially because it's 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
I love comics. I grew up reading them. I used to draw them a lot more so than I do these days. But a 3-panel comic. It is super easy, and it tells a story from beginning to end, and that's all you need. You need just 3 panels. It tells a story, and you can easily do that in 10. And it costs nothing unless you don't have pens or paper. I would hope you have pens and paper.
I say with like what you already have. So you probably either already have like an iPad or pen and paper, or
you have something.
You have something.
You can go into, I don't know, what was like that Microsoft program where people could paint with their mouse?
Paint.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even do that.
Yes.
Old school.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that idea, and that encapsulates the visualization of the storytelling and the arc we were talking about, but in such a simple 2D way that then you could kind of flesh out.
Yeah, one of my favorite comic book artists, he runs Perry Bible Fellowship. It's a funny name, but it's all very dark humor.
Okay.
But pbfcomics.com, and they're all like 3 panels, and they all say like, I can't even explain it. They're just really goofy and silly.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
Nice. I'll check that out. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming and chatting.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Yay. Cheers. Join the community and share your creative challenges on Instagram and Facebook at Creators Cafe by Kika Labs. And also check out my website, kikalabs.com, KIKALABS.com, to sign up for the mailing list so you always know when a new podcast is released, and to check out my coaching and digital courses to help you be a more confident and joyful creator.